Bueno, pues de todas formas, yo sé que ahorita van a ir entrando más, líderes a esta, que es una mentoría a fin de cuentas. Bueno, es una mentoría a fin de cuentas súper, súper, súper poderosa. Y yo sé que ahorita se van a ir agregando más. Por lo mientras, vamos a comenzar nosotros. Recuerden tener en esta ocasión, tener en qué anotar, por favor, que yo ni puedo estar anotando, o sea, mi cabeza está así, ¡oh! Revolucionando al mil. Tener con qué anotar por si quieren tener notas. En esta ocasión, esta la voy a dejar guardada por si alguien después quiere ir a verla, porque ya no me pidieron la de ayer, pero la de ayer no la dejamos guardada. Pero pongan mucha atención acá, ya después si quieren ir a verla a YouTube, pues la van a ver a YouTube, ¿no? Pero recuerden que no las estamos dejando todas en YouTube, nada más es una que otra. De repente me arrepiento de no dejarla. Vamos a comenzar, chicos, sigan agregando, por favor, de cualquier forma a sus equipos para que puedan acceder. Listo. Ley del intercambio, a la de una, a la de dos, tres.
I love the law of trade-offs. The law of trade-offs says you have to give up to go up. And the reason that I enjoy this law so much is because I have found in my life that my life has continually been intersected in my journey with trade-offs. In other words, there's no such thing as a smooth sailing throughout life. That we come to junctures, crossroads in our life, where we have to give up something if we want to keep going up. And we are asked ourselves, am I willing to give this up so that I can have something greater or bigger? Or do I want to hold on to what I have? And what I've discovered is people stop the journey when they're unwilling to continue to make the trade-offs. Because the moment that I won't give up, I don't have now the privilege of going up. I don't have the privilege of taking everything in life with me without having to make some trades. So, very simple question. How many of you want to go up in life? I mean, you really want to get to the top. Let's see those hands. Okay. Everybody wants to go up. And it's kind of like, yes, I want to go up. Now, let me ask you another question. How many of you want to give up a lot to go up? Because you see, we're just a little slower, aren't we? I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, I want to go up. I want to go up. I want to go. Oh, give up? And what do I teach in intentional living? Everything worthwhile is uphill. So what happens is, as you climb uphill, you have these places where you stop, and to go another step uphill, you've got to make a trade-off. So let me define what a trade-off is. A trade-off is giving up something of value in order to pursue something of greater value. That's what a trade-off is. A trade-off is where I give up something of value in order to pursue something of greater value. So I realize to get what I really want, I have to give up what I already have. And that's where the challenge, that's where the rub comes in, because so many times we want more, but we don't want to give up to get there. The first, and you could all go back and think of your first times of trade-offs, but my first trade-off, I can remember when I was in the third grade when we'd play marbles at recess. And we would trade off marbles, and there were certain cat eyes that you wanted, and boy, and how many of the constant colors would I give up for a cat eye, and what's it worth? And then you got the big one, you got the boulders and the big ones that you could hit 4 and 5 marbles at a time and knock those out of place. And I remember I would come home a lot of times after I made my own trades, and I'd look at what I had, and I'd play with my marbles, and I think, now what do I need to get to the next trade? So even as a third grader, I realized that for me to get something that I really wanted, I had to give up something that I really liked. And that's what a trade-off is. It's what you're giving up is not something of no value. I love it when people say, you know what? Boy, when we started off in life, we just gave up everything. And I look at them and I start laughing. You had nothing to give up when you started off in life. Of course, it was easy to give up nothing for something. That's kind of an IQ test. In fact, what I've learned about success is this. The more you have, the harder it is to do trade-offs. When you don't have much, trade-offs are easy. But when you have a lot, and all of a sudden you're saying, I have to give up all of this in order to go on this next step in my journey. Again, you've heard me say often, dreams are free, but the journey isn't. And the moment that you get on the journey, you get on the trade-off. So sometime back, I wrote a little thing called my trade-off creed, okay? And this is the first time I've ever read this publicly to anybody, but I've had it for a few months. So let me read it to you. The value of trade-offs is not to endure them. The goal is to become better because of them. When I go through change, it is because I'm passive. I accept it as inevitable. So I sigh and say, I hope this comes out all right. When I grow through change, I become active. Now, did you get the difference? Are you going through change, or are you growing through change? If I go through change, I'm passive, and I basically kind of sigh, and I say, okay, wow, I hope it all comes out all right. That's going through change. But when I grow through change, I become active. I can take control of my attitude. I take control of my emotions. Years ago, I determined that while others may lead small lives, I would not. While others would become victims, I would not. While others will leave their future in someone else's hands, I will not. While others go through life, I will grow through life. That is my choice, and I will surrender it to no one. And because I understand and live and embrace my trade-off creed, I realize that every time I come to another trade-off, I've got to pull this out again, and I got to realize that for me to go up, I not only have to give up, for me to go up, I have to grow up. And what I've learned is maturity comes from making good trade-offs over a period of time. That's when you begin to develop a maturity and a stability and a consistency that allows you to be and live a successful life. And so why am I so passionate today about trade-offs? Very simple. Trade-offs have taken me up the journey, the uphill journey, probably more and better than anything else. So I'm going to give you some examples of trade-offs I've had to make. And this is just to connect with you, because you're going to have examples too, but I'll just give you a few. For example, one of the trade-offs I've made many times is financial security today for potential tomorrow. I've on several occasions, I've given up financial security of where I was and what I was making because I felt that I could make a change and I would have potential to be more and to do more. In fact, I've made 7 major moves in my life. 7 of them. Of the 7 major moves that I've made in my life, 5 of them I've moved and made less money than what I had in my last place. Are you with me? In other words, it wasn't an upward move. People say, "Oh, are you going to do better financially?" No, I'm going to do worse financially. And they said, well, then why are you making this change? It's because I'm trading financial security today for financial potential tomorrow. One of my favorite ones, and I could just tell you stories because this brings a lot of joy to me. But I can remember when I started a company called Enjoy Stewardship Services, and very difficult company to begin. We raised money for churches and building programs, and we had no experience, and we were starting in a business that had other companies that had raised billions of dollars and had raised money for like 4,000 churches, and we'd raised money for none. And so when we'd go make our board presentation to help a church raise money, they'd say, well, give us some of the churches you've helped. And we said, well, we haven't started yet with any of them. And well, the last church put 3,200 churches that references, and well, we have none. But you could be the first. And we found out that people didn't want to be the first. They wanted to be the 3,123rd. They wanted to get with somebody they knew for sure could do this program. And especially when it comes to money. And so I had to work my way of how do I get into this market? How do I do it? And I could still remember the creative way that we got in the market. And in fact, what happened is we said, that's true. They've done a lot of churches, but the difference between us and them is since we have none others, we will tailor make our program just for you. And we have time. They don't have time. They're too busy. And we got a niche. And so to make a long story short, within about 4 or 5 years, we became the largest in America. We raised literally billions of dollars. But that's not the story. I can still remember we've been in this for about a year, and we were starting to show that we had some potential here. We weren't flying, but we're going down the runway at a pretty good speed. And there was a man I wanted to hire. And he was making pretty good money with IBM, but I knew enough of him that I wanted to hire him. So I flew up to Seattle, and I spent an afternoon with him. And the more I talked to him, the more I knew I needed him. He could make it happen. I knew that if I could hire him, he could get the plane off the ground. So the good news is I found the right person. The bad news is I had no money. And so at the end of the day, I said, well, I need to hire you. And I said, well, how much is it going to cost me? And he told me what he was making. It was going to cost me a lot of money. For me, it was going to cost me a lot of money. And I said, okay. I said, I'll do that. And he said, well, I'm kind of interested. How are you going to do that? Because he said, the things you're showing me, you don't have money to do that. Oh, I said, it's very simple. I'm going to give my salary to you. You can have my money. And he looked at me and said, you're kidding. I said, no, I'm not kidding, no. It's the only way I can get you. I don't have any money. The only way I can get you is to give you my salary. So I told him what my salary was. And I said, will you accept that for a year? And I'll have him make the check out to you. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to have no salary. Well, he said, how are you going to live? I said, well, I haven't figured that out yet. But it's okay, I'll figure that out. But I want you. And I'll give you my salary. I'll never forget him look at me, and he said, you just hired me. He said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. I'm leaving IBM. I'm leaving a very secure salary, but I can't get away with the fact that you're going to give me your salary. I said, yeah. I said, that's the only way I can get you. He said, I just kind of want to work for a person that would give up their salary for me. I said, well, you got it. And so I called my wife, Margaret, and she's, I see the train a-coming. And she said, what happened? I said, oh, I got good news and bad news. I said, the good news is we hired him. Oh, she said, that is so good. I'm so happy. She said, what's the bad news? I said, I gave up my salary. And it got real quiet. She said, that's very bad. I said, I know. But trust me, he's so good, I'll get my salary back in about 4 months. I just got to figure out how to live for 4 months. Other than that, no problem. One of the greatest financial decisions I ever made in my life. I gave up a salary and gained millions and millions of dollars. Now, you see, I run into people all the time, and they just say, you know, that person's really lucky. No, it's kind of like the person who one time he watched me, and I was teaching. I was teaching about 2,000 people leadership, and we were having a good day, and everything was going really well, and people were paying money to hear me, and I was signing books at the last break in the afternoon. He came up to me, and he said, I've been watching you teach leadership, and you pop your cough drop in your mouth, and you drink your water out of your bottle, and you relax, and you laugh with the people, and you enjoy it. And he said, these people all paid to hear you. He said, I decided I want to do what you do. Well, I said, of course you do. Everybody wants to do what I do. It's an IQ test. I said, let me ask you a question. Would you like to do what I did so you can do what I do? See, we all want to do what they do. We just don't want to do what they did to get to do what they do. Oh, I forgot to say, After Margaret was silent on the phone for a few moments, she said, "Oh, kind of like you did a few years ago when you wanted to hire a youth pastor and you gave up your salary." Yeah. Yeah, I've done that before. And I've done it after. You see, I understand what trade-offs will do. And I've never let money control the trade-off. Another trade-off I've made is I've traded off comfort for legacy. Because just a few years ago, when I was 64, 5 years ago, I was done. I say I was done. I was set. I was telling everybody, give me a couple more years, and we're going to wrap this baby up. And I'm in good shape. And then I met Paul Martinelli at the John Maxwell, who now oversees the John Maxwell team, and he said, "You ought to start a coaching company." And I didn't want to start it. You mean start a coaching company? I don't need a coaching company. I'm okay. I'm just getting ready I can play golf. Hello, I can not only retire, I can retire early. I don't need any more money. I'm good. Hello, I've sold 27 million books. Do the math. I'm going to make it. How we do it? See, the higher you go, the tougher the trade-offs. And I said, okay, I'll give up retirement and having everything I got and want to start another organization. I'm so glad I did. I'm telling you, there isn't a golf shot in this world that could make up for the John Maxwell team. I've never played a round of golf that's as good as watching lives being changed and coaches being certified, and now we got 13,000 of them in 140 countries around the world. Hello, hey, and I almost missed it for a silly thing like retirement. Oh my gosh, I could be living today like other retired people who are getting up in the morning trying to figure out what they're going to do. And the biggest event that's going to happen to me today is I have a 10:33 tea time. Is that as good as it's ever going to get? But I had to make a trade-off to get there. Now, you see, my father as a kid taught me about trade-offs because we all had to do chores, and his basically thing was that you pay now and you play later. And so I grew up with pay now, play later, and what that meant was you do your chores at the first week, and on Saturday afternoon we go swimming. But if you haven't done your chores and Saturday afternoon comes, you don't get to go swimming. And it only took me a couple times watching the car pull out and my family was going swimming and I was going to have to go down and clean the basement that I figured out this trade-off stuff. I was pretty young, but I kind of figured out that if I pay now, I can play later. And then my dad taught me, he said, if you pay now, you play later. He says, you'll enjoy your play because you paid on the front end. But he said, let me tell you something. If you play now, when you pay later, it compounds and your payment is greater. It's called trade-offs. So let me give you some trade-off thoughts. Number one, many trade-offs can be made at any time. In other words, you don't have to wait for a special time to make a lot of trade-offs. For example, if you want to trade off a bad habit for a good habit, you can do it. You can do it today. You don't have to wait at all. You can make a trade-off, and we can do it today. And what's wonderful is those small daily trade-offs that we make in our life give us a habit and a discipline in life to make the bigger trade-offs when they come to us. It's hard to go from a no trade-off to a big trade-off. You got to go from a no trade-off to a small trade-off to a bigger trade-off to a big trade-off. Number two is trade-offs force us to make choices. That's what I love about trade-offs. It doesn't leave us the same. We either trade it off, we either do, we don't. I run into people all the time that say, well, I'd like to have a do-over in life. Well, you're not going to get one. That's not a trade-off, that's a wish. Rub a lantern and look for a genie. Is that as good as it's going to get for you? Well, I'd just like to have a do-over. You don't get a do-over. It's already done. But I'll tell you what, you do get, instead of a do-over, you get to do it now. You don't get a do-over. You can't go back, but you can make that change. Though you cannot go back and make a brand new start, my friend, anybody can start from now and make a brand new end. So you can, it's a choice. Number 3, trade-offs stand between where you are and where you want to go. I promise you this. Trade-offs stand right between where you are and where you want to go. Between that is a trade-off, something that you're going to have to give up to go up. And number 4, you're doing so good. You're doing so good. You just got your heads down. You're just taking notes. Now, let me just stop here for a minute. I mean, you're doing so good. I'm loving it. I mean, I'm just teaching. You just get those notes. And I just want to stop here long enough to say, you've got it. I can tell you, you've got it. I can see it in your eyes. You've got it. I can see by you taking notes. You got it. You got it. Now, I am a little concerned about the person on your left. Just to be honest, just between you and me, they're not quite as sharp as you are. No, don't look at him. Don't look at him. Some of you some of you are looking right. Some of you say, that's right, yeah. Oh, yeah, well, I've kind of been, yeah. Now, it's okay. It's okay. Just look at him and smile and say, I'll help you. Tell him that. I'll help you. I'll help you. I'll help you. Every once in a while, just slip your notes over there for them to take good notes for you. Are you with me? Just slip them over there to kind of help you. Number 4, the pain. The pain is felt before the gain is realized. What makes trade-offs so hard is you feel pain on the front end, you only get gain on the back end. I'll never forget my daughter-in-law Liz sent me a picture one day when our youngest grandson James, at that time he was 3 years old, and he loved his blankie. Everywhere he went, he had his blankie in his thumb. Boy, I mean, that was his security, and he loved his blankie. But every once in a while, I mean, after a while, that blankie gets dirty, and mom's got to take the blankie away and wash it and dry it. And it was his most traumatic time of the week. And she sent me a picture, literally, of James sitting by the dryer with his legs crossed and his fist on his face, and he's just crying big tears, just waiting for his blankie to get dry so he can have it again. And I looked at it and said, you know what? That's the way trade-offs are. We have to give up our blankie. We have to give up the thing that makes us secure, that gives us peace. And in that whole process, there's a front-end payment that you feel the pain before you ever get to the gain. And so sometimes we just say, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. And so we don't trade off sometimes, not because it's not a wise decision, but because the pain on the front end is not worth it. I was just talking to Heather Moyse on the phone the other day. She's one of our John Maxwell team coaches. She's a gold medal Olympic bobsledder out of Canada, and she's a great lady. And she went to the Antarctica on a trip with about 30 other people to go clear out to the point. And oh my gosh, I mean, she sent me pictures of me, her face just ice. And I said, Heather, why would you do that? She said, well, because she said, I wanted to reach that goal. That's a goal of mine, and I wanted to tell her, let me give you some good goal setting thoughts. But then what she said was this, she said, John, every day, I think it took him like 38 days. Every day I wanted to quit. Every day I wanted to quit. And that's that pain process. Now, what I want you to catch is, number 5, the higher you climb, the tougher the trade-offs. That's just a fact. The higher you climb, the tougher the trade-off. In fact, Henry Thoreau said, the price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. And at 69, I'm saying, how much time do I have to give up for that? Because my time's getting less. And Henry Kissinger said, each success only buys an admission ticket to a more difficult problem. You see, at the bottom, when we're at the bottom, our reason for change is desperation. We're in trouble. You with me? Oh, I gotta change. But when we're at the top, it's no longer do we have that desperation in our life. And so what I found is people at the bottom, they trade off with desperation, and people at the top trade off for inspiration. And both trade-offs are legitimate, but one is out of a negative, I've got to get out of this, and the other is out of a positive, I want more of this. I love the story of the guy that was, his story was this way. He kind of was on what I would call the prosperity circuit. Now, this is for people of faith. If you don't have any faith, just relax, take a pill. It's a fun story. So anyway, his story was that he had only $20 left, and he was in church one Sunday, and the offering plate came, and he gave his last $20 in the offering plate, and he had nothing else, and then God blessed him so much for giving everything that he became a multimillionaire. So his story was he's going around and basically, I gave it all up, but I'm a multimillionaire. And so everywhere I go, I gave it all up, but I'm a multimillionaire. I gave it all up, but I'm a multimillionaire. And things were really going good. People would clap and cheers. Hey, he gave it all up. He's a multimillionaire. And until he was at a banquet tour in Toledo, Ohio one night. And he was doing Q&A, and a lady raised her hand, and she said, okay, let me make sure I got this straight. You gave it all up, and now you're a multimillionaire. He said, yes, lady, that's exactly how it happened. She said, then I have a question. She said, what's your question, ma'am? She said, would you like to do it again? A trade-off when you have little is not near as heavy as a trade-off when you have much. That's why many people, when they get a certain level of success, they never go higher. Because they've got enough to be comfortable, and they won't trade off comfort for any kind of significance in their life. Number 6, continued trade-offs are a result of seeing the big picture. I love this. I think this is huge. The only way we can make continual trade-offs in our life and grow through those trade-offs is we have to constantly see the big picture. Lose the big picture and the trade-offs stop. See the big picture, and all of a sudden we say, okay, I see it all. Okay, I'm willing to make that trade-off. And when people fail to give up to go up, what they've done is somehow the picture's been dumbed down, it's been shrunk, and they've lost the picture of what they could be, and they see only the picture of what they are. And when you see the picture of what you are, and you don't see the picture of what you could be, you stop making trade-offs, and you seek security. I would say number 7, take time. Take time outs for trade-offs. When you're coming to a situation like this, what I want to encourage you to do is I just want you to call a trade-off timeout and say, okay, I can see that I'm at that juncture, and I've got to give up something to go forward, and so I've got to give it some time. And let me just tell you how I do it, because I've done this many times. In fact, I have made 19 major trade-offs in my life. I mean, major trade, not minor ones, major trade-offs. And I have filters that when I have to do a trade-off, I take it through a filter. And the first filter I take my trade-off through is my values filter. I look at what I have to give up, and I ask myself very simply, does this in any way depreciate the values that I have? Because I'm not willing to trade off if I lose my values. They're not for sale, and they're not for trade. So I've got to ask myself, okay, is this going to violate the values? If this is going to violate the values, then I'm not going to make that trade-off. And there have been times when I've said, well, in fact, I'll give you an example. Many years ago, 18 years ago, I just started our nonprofit organization, Equip, and we were just getting launched, and we were just kind of a promise. We weren't anything but a promise, but we were a promise of what we perhaps could be. And then I made that decision to resign the pastorate and go into this kind of work and to get into more of a business secular society where I could be salt and light in a world that maybe did not know God, and perhaps I could do more for the big kingdom than staying with a bunch of Christians. And so I made that transition. I'll never forget, we had a businessman who had come to me and he loved what we were doing. He said, John, I'm going to give you $1 million gift to help you launch Equip. And I mean, $1 million that was more than all the money we'd taken in, and $1 million was a lot of money. And when I made that decision to leave the pastorate and to do what I'm doing now, he called me on the phone. I'll never forget the call. I could take you right to where I was sitting when he called me and said, I heard this. Is this true? Yes, it is true. He said, I don't think that's a good decision. He said, I think you're leaving the ministry. I said, no, I'm not leaving the ministry. I'm kind of going to the ministry, to be honest with you. I'm just leaving the people who've always been in the ministry. I'm not going to be singing with a choir doing kumbaya every week. You understand? And I'm trying to help him understand. He had an understanding, and it's getting tense. And I'll never forget. He looked at me and said, John, he said, I've offered you $1 million for Equip. I said, I said, boy, thank you very much. I said, wow, it's our first big gift. Yeah, thank you very much. He said, if you make this decision, I'm going to withdraw that offer. And I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, I'm not kidding you at all. He said, you either go back and be where I think you need to be in the pastorate, or I'm going to withdraw the $1 million. I'll never forget the pit in my stomach as I said, I'm going to have to let you keep the $1 million. And I sounded kind of courageous and strong. And I hung up that phone and I laid on that carpet, and for 15 minutes I bawled like a baby. It was $1 million. And by the way, never got it. He never came back. Never said, you were right, let me now give you some money. Lost that forever. But I wasn't about to trade my values for $1 million. Now, what I'm saying is, the higher you go, the tougher the trade-offs. But the flip side of it is, since that time, millions and 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 millions of dollars have gone to the cause, and we've trained 6 million leaders in every country in the world without his $1 million. That gave me an amazing boldness. So when anybody ever comes now and says, boy, John, if you, I will give you, I say, oops, excuse me. There was a time I thought I needed you, but now I know I don't. And if there are going to be conditions, it's okay. You just, blessings, you have my blessings. Go your way, my friend. And I learned there, you just don't trade in your values for anything. Those are yours. Those are who you are. So in 52 years of making trade-offs, they're never easy. They always stretch me. And they really have made me the person that I am today. And I just want you to know that you become stronger every time you make a trade-off. And you build into your mind what I call a trade-off bank, where you say to yourself, I made that trade-off, and look where it took me. So I'm willing again to make the next trade-off, because I know it will take me further up the road. Does that make sense to you? Every one of you have trade-offs now in your life. So remember, you have to give up to go up. You have to grow up to go up. but you grow up through the give up. When you give up to go up, you quickly grow up and mature, and you're willing to go up to that very next level. I challenge every one of you. I challenge you. I challenge myself. I'm not done making trade-offs. There's one that I just made in the last few months that's too close, too personal yet. I don't want to go there, but I just made a huge trade-off in my life. And what's beautiful is this. Once you make that trade-off, you rise above what you thought. Listen to me carefully. Once you make that trade-off, you rise above what you thought. And instead of what you thought, you get a confidence and a security. And now it's not I thought, it's I know. I thought is on the front side of the trade-off. I know is on the back side of the trade-off. And when you see people with confidence and security and their willingness to absolutely give it up, you are looking at a person who has gone through trade-offs in their life, and they understand, I think on the front end, I know on the back end. I think on the front end, I know on the back end. And what I want you in your growth area, what I want in your personal growth area is I want you not to live on what I think. I want you to live on what I know, because that's where confidence comes in. That's where security comes in. That's where great leadership comes in. That's where believability comes in. That's where passion comes in. Show me a person that lacks all of those things, and I'll show you a person, listen to me carefully, that when the trade-off came, they backed off. And when you back off from a trade-off, the next trade-off that faces you is bigger than the last one. Trade-offs don't dumb down for you. They just get bigger. And you have to rise to the level of those trade-offs. And God be with you as you make those decisions, because those are the decisions that make you the person, the leader, that gives you moral authority, that when you speak, people listen. Not because of title, not because of position, but because you have made the trade-offs.
¿Qué tal? ¡Ah! ¿Cómo están? ¿Eh?
Muy bien, mi líder, gracias a Dios.
Muy bien. Creo que tuvimos una reunión hace un rato de oros, zafiros y superiores. Y es exactamente, creo que se conectó, ¿verdad, Pau? Con el tema que tuvimos de liderazgo hace un rato. Hizo como el clic. Es correcto. Estaba recordando. Y sí es verdad, o sea, tal cual. Recordando algunos intercambios que he hecho en mi vida, algunos intercambios fuertes, muy fuertes que he hecho en mi vida con miedo, o muchas veces no, algunos de ellos, y que me han llevado a algo mucho mejor, algo mucho mejor. Y a veces tenemos mucho miedo a no hacer esos intercambios, a tomar esas decisiones, a dar algo, ¿no? A dar, ¿no? Primero está el dar y luego está el recibir. Y le hemos hablado muchísimas veces, pero me encanta cómo lo toca John Maxwell. Un poco no. Me encanta. Wow, estuvo súper increíble. Pues bueno, les ofrezco disculpas, estuvimos en una capacitación antes un poquito, los días 3, 10 y 2, 3, 10 y 20. Tenemos capacitación oros y oro, zafiro, esmeraldas, diamantes y superior. Entonces, pues me complico un poquito. Me encantaría que todos participen, que todas participen en estas capacitaciones que están súper increíbles, obviamente, pues con un enfoque más al liderazgo, más a la construcción, más al pues a esta parte, ¿no? Del intercambio, al que estamos dando a los equipos, a las personas que confían en cada uno de nosotros, qué estamos aportando, ¿no? Antes de pedir, antes de decir, ay, es que mi cheque, ay, es que los puntos, ay, es que no hace pedido, ay, es que no está haciendo eso, o sea, ver nosotros, ¿no? Como líderes, qué estamos aportando, qué estamos haciendo, qué aportamos al crecimiento de nuestros equipos. Y yo tocaba el tema hace un ratito con los líderes, que hay muchas personas que dicen, ay, es que, ¿qué me va a dar la empresa? Y a ver, ¿qué me va a dar la empresa? Y a ver, ¿qué voy a ganar de la empresa? ¿Y esta empresa qué me va a dar? Y a mí me encanta contestarle a ese tipo de personas, ¿tú qué le vas a dar? ¿No? Me encanta que me pregunten eso. Me encanta que me pregunten, ¿y qué me va a dar la empresa? ¿Y qué me va a dar? ¿Y qué me va a dar si hago esto? ¿Y qué me va a dar si lo hago el otro? ¿Y qué me va a dar si hago esto? ¿No? Y yo mi pregunta siempre, si tú, como socio de la compañía, como líder de la compañía, ¿qué le vas a dar? ¿Tú con qué te vas a comprometer? ¿Cuál va a ser tu nivel de compromiso para poder pedir, para exigir? Todavía ni siquiera das y ya estás pidiendo, ¿no? Todavía ni siquiera vemos o sabemos si realmente te vas a comprometer, si realmente vas a ser responsable en hacer lo mínimo que te requiere la compañía y ya estás preguntando qué vas a recibir. Primero hay que aprender a dar, ¿no? Hay que aprender a dar lo mejor de nosotros para exigir lo mejor también de los otros. Cuando yo doy lo mejor de mí, pues mínimo pido lo mejor también. Y me siento con el derecho también de exigir, ¿no? Cuando tú das, si tú das una buena atención, si tú das un buen servicio, si tú das una buena cara, pues no esperas. Si tú das una caricia, no esperas una bofetada, ¿verdad? Pero si das una bofetada, pues espérate otra, ¿no? O sea, claro, depende de lo que yo doy, es también lo que yo voy a recibir. Ese intercambio, todo es un intercambio. En casa, ¿no? En casa, en la tienda, vas a las tortillas y no te dan las tortillas, sino las pagas, ¿no? Tienes que pagarlas y te las dan. Si tú nada más las agarras y te las llevas, pues te van a alcanzar, ¿no? Y te van a aventar una tortilla, una bola de masa. ¡Ey! Págueme. Si vas a la tienda y pides 1 kilo de huevos y no los pagas, te los van a quitar y te van a aventar un huevo en la cabeza, ¿no? Págueme. O sea, claro, tenemos que estar conscientes de que es un intercambio, que no puedo exigir nada más sin estar dando. Y me encantó, a mí me encantó, ¿no? Me encantan muchísimo. Ya estamos en a ver, es en la número 13, ¿verdad? Vamos a ver rápidamente. Esperen un segundito, si no me equivoco, ya estamos en la ley. ¡Ay! En la ley número 13 de nuestra academia es
11.
sí, la 11, no, uy, sí, la ley del intercambio, la 11. El jueves tenemos la ley de la curiosidad, el viernes la ley del modelo, el próximo jueves la ley de la expansión y terminamos con la ley de la contribución, que estoy segura que va a ser buenísima, ¿ok? Entonces terminamos ya en 2 semanas esta academia y comenzamos con nuestra academia ¿de qué? A ver si saben de qué.
Clases de inglés.
Ok, empezamos con nuestra academia de nuestro curso de inglés, ¿ok? Para que estemos aprendiendo